So Shard, if you can please do that. Oh God, they keep on popping
Yes, sir.
up.
Yes, sir. Doing it, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So we're all set. So once again, I welcome the audience first on this wonderful, wonderful Guru series. There are lots of new students here. There are lots of students who, are joining Shulani for the first time. There are lots of you who are yet not on campus or have been on campus only for, I would say, 10, 15 days or a little more. So welcome to Shulani and welcome to the Yogananda Guru series. Very quickly about the Yogananda Guru series, the genesis of this is to inspire you students, inspire you by meeting exceptional people, people who've done different things in their lives, people who've done work beyond their job. And I'm very excited to have and welcome Narendra Chirmule with us today. Narendra, there have been lots and lots of very exciting people who've come and given the Guru series talk. And to name a few, we've had Professor Abdul Kalam, our ex-president, who's given a Guru talk at Shulani. We've had Professor Robert Huber, who's a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry, who's given the Nobel Prize, given the talk. We have a very dear Yuvraj Singh, who's given a Guru series talk. So we've got people from all different parts of life. Anupam Kher gave a Guru series talk. So we have lots of expectations from you, Narendra. And hopefully, I'm sure you'll live up to those expectations. Quickly about Dr. Chirmule students. I've known Narendra now for probably 5 years. He's one of the most charismatic scientists I've known. And I'm using the word scientist very intentionally. He's a scientist, he's a philosopher, he's a budding musician, he's a teacher, he's now an author of a book, Good Genes Gone Bad. He just recently published this, it's out, it's a very exciting book. I just got it out. I hope someone is taking this picture, screenshot. Why don't we do that in the rain? Shard, if you can take the screenshot of this, we'll appreciate. Oh, my face is not coming in. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Okay, so we're going to talk about Narendra's journey into new drug discovery. So many of you are biotechnology students, many of you are pharma students, many of you are students of science, many of you might not be students of science. But the story of drug discovery goes back, I think, more than 300 years. New drugs were discovered by human beings, and our lives or our lifespan increased. And in Good Genes Gone Bad, there are multiple stories that Narendra speaks about. His stories about new drug discovery. Narendra started his, so he's a PhD from University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, which is one of the leading universities of the world. He's taught at UPenn. It's an Ivy League, as you all know. Narendra then did the usual stuff of trying to make money, where he joined a large multinational biotech company called Amgen, and some of the biotech students will have known about Amgen. We'll talk about Amgen during the discussion, Narendra. And then Narendra became Shah Rukh Khan, probably not a great word to be spoken about today. So he did Swades. He came back to India with Biocon, which is India's largest biotech company, and he led their foray into new drug discovery. I think under your leadership, you came up with, I think, insulin, if I'm not wrong, and many, many other drugs. So we'd love to hear about that, Narendra. So Narendra took a sabbatical from that, and he now teaches. He's a visiting professor and advisor to Shulani. He takes lectures with us. He also speaks to us on multiple occasions. He also takes certain courses. So if you get the opportunity of being with Narendra, do that, students. But today it's about his book, Good Genes, Bad Genes. So Narendra, tell us a bit about yourself and the motivation of the book. Over to you.
In fact, one second.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I managed to get back thanks to my husband figuring it out. But honestly, Narendra, when I was just thinking of how I was going to introduce you, I was a bit of at a loss of words because I didn't know what I would say. Biotechnologist, an author, corporate honcho, a teacher, a musician. Yeah, I know you play the flute so beautifully. And as Atul says today, of course, it's all about your book. And let him not show off. he's not the only one who has a book. I have one here too. So we got ours from the library today, and I promise you we're going to go through it. Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so much.
The Vice Chancellor, I saw your book. I have one too.
So, Poonam, we want you to have the book so that we can take a picture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
Great.
showing very clearly. Is it showing?
Yeah.
It's okay. Your
Uh,
camera is very sophisticated. We'll
I,
give
th- I, th- I think I love abstract art, so this is even better.
it.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And over to you, Naren, please. The kids must
Yeah,
be
thank
dying to
you.
listen to you.
Thank you, Atul and
Naren,
Poonam.
give us a bit about your background. What made you move from science to the corporate world?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
What made you move to India from a very successful and a very rich career in the US? You're now right now in Philadelphia. We understand that's where UPenn is. Then what made you go back, and what are you trying to do nowadays apart from writing books? So why don't you
Right.
spend 5 minutes telling us about yourself and your book, and then we'd love to give some controversial questions to you. Over to you.
I love it. So, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and Atul and Poonam. This is an honor to be in this situation, and so many students coming in. I'm excited to have this conversation. So a little bit about myself. My journey in my biotechnology career has always been, not systematically planned. It's always been when opportunities arise, I'm able to take on some new challenge and then do that. So when I did my PhD in Cancer Research Institute in Mumbai, I had an opportunity to come to Cornell University in New York to do my postdoctoral fellowship early in the 80s. Then in the 90s, I had an opportunity to come to University of Pennsylvania to teach. So, it's meeting the right people, taking the right decision, taking risks, doing something slightly different. And then I went on to Merck, and then I went on to Amgen. Finally, coming back to India was not an easy decision. But I think after spending almost 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry in the US, I really started doing a lot of introspection. Hindi mein kehte hain na ki, you think about what you want to do in life and what you want to make an impact. Are you doing things that are making a difference to what things that you're concerned about? And there were things that came up to my mind. There were things like I really wanted to work in India. I wanted to do something not just in India, but from a global perspective. I was very US centric, working very US centric companies till that time, and I wanted to come back sort of to my roots, sort of like Atul said, Swades, and learn the music, eat the food, eat the fantastic food, and all of that. And then when I left Biocon, when I retired out of Biocon when I was 58, about 2.5 years ago, it occurred to me that I have a lot of experiences, like we all do, and I had time on my hands, so I started writing, and that's how the big book came about. And so that's sort of the very short summary of my journey, Atul, just to tell you that things came. I took a chance, took a risk, and moved on.
Why the book, Naren? I mean, I know you love writing, but what made you write this book?
Yeah, so good question. So the book actually is a like the book says in the title, a short history of vaccine and biologics, failures, successes, and controversies. And the reason I wrote this book is, for some reason, I have been involved in drug development studies that have failed badly, and very badly. A lot of bad things happened. Some patients have died during the course of the clinical trial. They got really sick. The drug didn't work. It's not just drug didn't work. I mean, really bad things happened during the course of this drug development. And what I noticed is that people don't write about failures. Everyone writes about successes. And I thought there is so many more lessons to learn from failure than successes, is that we forget about, we try to, sweep the failures under the rug. But in fact, that's where the real stories come out. Atul, you might have to unmute.
I was thinking about this as you were speaking, and you spoke about failures. And I think you write about controversies in the book, and we'll talk about the book in a second. But I've seen so many movies where you've got these evil doctors or evil scientists trying to manipulate the genes and do some trying to rule the world. Does it happen in real life, or these are all stories?
Well, we hope that humans are not actually evil in real life, and it's all only in the movies. I would say that the genetic modulation of the human genome has become so simple nowadays from a technology perspective, and literally a high school student could take a genome, edit it using molecular biology techniques, and make a clone of a cell. This is not like some rocket science anymore. You can do it literally in your garage. It's that simple. So when you make things this simple, some people are going to try some crazy things, like that doctor in China who actually did make a genetic mutation or deleted the gene for CCR5, which is a gene that is required for HIV to enter the cells. Right. So he did it in a good thought, saying that if I delete the gene from the embryonic stem cell of a baby, of which ultimately becomes a human, and if I delete this gene, this child will never get HIV. I mean, his thought was good, but then the problem is that it's not that simple. It's not like there are so many consequences of not having that gene. Right? Not just HIV, but there are so many bad things that would happen. So there's a process to develop drugs, and you have to follow that. You can't just do because you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to come across all these failures.
You're speaking about 7 stories of failures and controversies in your book. You want to pick up one of them that is your favorite and speak about that to our audience, Narendra?
Yeah, no question, the Biocon story for me is the best that I wrote. I felt so good writing about it, because the Biocon story is the positive story. Positive meaning all stories are positive. They all have a positive ending. But Biocon for me was the culmination of my career in the corporate life. So I had all my 25, 30 years of experience I had to use to implement what I did in Biocon, whether it was whether working on the culture of the organization, helping the talent to reach their potential, ensuring that they got all the support from the consultants and the services that we needed to get there. So all of that.
I'm going to hold you for a second here, but I think for the audience, before you get into your experiences, you want to give a snapshot of Biocon. What is Biocon? What does Biocon do? And then get into the journey.
Good, thank you. So Biocon is one of India's largest biotechnology company, founded by Kiran Mazumdar Shaw in 1978. It's more than 40 years old now. One of the oldest biotechnology companies in India. They do revolutionary work in terms of creating new products and new drugs using recombinant DNA and gene editing technologies. And so they make drugs like insulin, an antibody to HER2, which is called trastuzumab biosimilar, which is a treatment for breast cancer, and a whole slew of other drugs. And one important thing they do, which not many companies in India do, is they manufacture these drugs at very, very large scale, and they sell all over the world. For example, insulin, on my last count, then when I was there, they were selling in 69 different countries all over the world. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal to make so much insulin. Their goal is to have every 5th person in the world have a Biocon insulin. It's a very ambitious goal. More than 1 billion doses of insulin every year. So it's a large company, large goals, large vision. And I was head of R&D there, so I'm really proud to be in such an organization which had such a honorable goal. And Atul, I'll say one more sentence and I'll stop about Biocon. What Kiran says, and I think everyone believes in the company, is it's not about making the $1 billion. It's about serving the 1 billion patients. That's more important.
No, I can associate with this, Naren, and this is something I've never shared with you, but in the mid 90s, I actually was leading a project for Novo Nordisk. And for students over here, Novo Nordisk was the pioneers in human insulin. So there were only two companies, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, making human insulin. And there used to be insulin made out of pigs, pig insulin, which I'm sure you were aware. And insulin used to be extremely, extremely expensive in India. I'm talking about the late 90s. And you didn't have access to insulin at that point of time. Patients would die out of diabetes. And then Wokhart and Shanta Biotech, I think that was the first one that did something on insulin, if I'm not wrong. So I'm just trying to remember my old pieces of work, and Biocon and Wokhart. I mean, you guys made a revolution in the country. So congratulations for that. What an amazing journey that you guys did. So so that was the Biocon journey. Any other journey that you would like to talk about? Any other? You speak about viruses. You speak about what about cancer? What's happening on cancer?
Lots of things are happening on cancer. I'll let you read the book on cancer, but I do have a story which I'd like to share about two stories. One is about hemophilia, and I'll talk to you about that. And the other is about gene therapy. And if it's okay, I have about 5 slides which I have prepared on gene therapy, which will tell us the story of the book, of the gene therapy story in the book, very briefly. So if you
Still a non-biologist, like I can understand, I think you're allowed.
Yes, absolutely. So the point is, I'll just show you the few slides that I have made. And so what I've done is, the book, as I mentioned, is my experience in drug development in the various places that I've been. And I'm talking about failures, colossal failures, right? These are not just normal failures. Were it not for these failures, the path to success that followed would have been hazy, long-winded, and tiresome. And to appreciate the success, it is really important to document these failures. That's why I wrote the book. One of the things I write in the book is my own experiments, what I do with awareness with Chirmule University. I've done a whole session on various aspects of self-awareness. And what I've weaved through the book is many points, many soft skill points, like I'm showing here. What are your inflection points that will change your career? How can you make decisions? How do you ask questions? All of these things that are very important in life are weaved through the stories that I tell in the book. So we looked at the book. So I talk about these inflection points in a manner that throughout the book for every story, where things happen like when I tell the story of gene therapy, things go up. There are a lot of successes, then something bad happens. There was a death in the trial and the whole field comes crashing down. Then something else happens and something else happens later on. And ultimately you get successes. So to be able to see all of these patterns of how things are moving is really important. And I just wanted to mention that my niece, Gauri Dyute, she did all the artwork in this book. So there are 7 chapters.
Before you go there, let me go back on this exhibit. Isn't this also the story of life, Naren? We have our ups and we go down and we go crashing. And somewhere we need tenacity to keep going up. And ultimately, people who continue working hard are the ones who succeed. Is that something that you like to add on?
Absolutely. So while it is a story of failures in gene therapy and clinical trials and drug development, it is also my own story of failures in drug development. And it's also a sort of, I won't call it self-help. It is a book on understanding how to deal with failures. Yeah, you're right.
Wow. So I would say, even if you're not a biotechnologist or a biology student, one should read the book, because it's not just about biology, it's also about the softer side of succeeding in life.
Absolutely. And so I've written these 7 chapters, including a chapter on COVID. So first I start the chapter by talking about my friend Murli, who is a severe hemophiliac. He lives in Chicago. He just turned 60, and he is a remarkable person, amazingly remarkable person. And just so that you imagine what his life is going through. If he gets a severe cut if he gets a cut in his skin, he will die. It's a really deadly disease. And yet he has survived all these years by taking all kinds of medicines and So he's a great inspirational story. The first story is about him. And then I talk about gene therapy, where from starting in 1972, when Genentech started developing insulin using recombinant DNA, we talked about insulin recently. Then all the reds are the failures. And then finally, in 2019, we have gene therapy as real successful treating eye disease. We have a successful story. This is cystic fibrosis, which is one of the diseases that can be treated by gene therapy. So at some point, there's a death in the clinical trial. And this is a tragic death of a young 18-year-old boy. And so I tell the story about how that failure was disastrous for the field of gene therapy in 1999. And the resilience of people like Jim Wilson, whose story I tell again in the book, of how he was the one, and many like him, who persevered despite this failure to come back and discover new vectors like AAV and make gene therapy happen. This is green fluorescent protein being expressed in the eye of a monkey, and then curing of a dog who was blind, and then finally success in 2007. And Gene Bennett at the University of Pennsylvania, who did phenomenal work to ensure that we got this drug, Luxturna, approved for treatment of eye disease, eye blindness. So kids who were blind now with this gene therapy can be cured. So these are like phenomenal successes, right? But they all came from enormous failures earlier, right? It took 20, 30, 40 years to come to this success. And there are many more gene therapy trials that are going on right now. I bring it back to hemophilia, where there will be a gene therapy for hemophilia very shortly, maybe in the next couple of years. And people like Kathy Hai, who are working on this also, I tell personal stories of these scientists. And then finally, this is in August, I met Murli again in Chicago when I was here, when I went, and he will benefit from this gene therapy ultimately, right? So this is what it is all about. This is what it's all about. And just to let you know, he's sitting on the left side, but in the US, that's the driver's seat. And he is not just sitting in the driver's seat physically, metaphorically, also he's in the driver's seat in all of these activities. And so that's what sort of the high level summary of the book and one chapter of gene therapy that I really love to write.
Wow, you were speaking about this and I was getting goose pimples, Naren. This is amazing. And I was trying to put myself into the shoes of a young researcher, a young student, Saket, for example. And I'm sure he's asking this question: how do I get into this exciting world of drug discovery? How do I become a scientist? How do I get into this? What's your advice to young students, young scientists, Naren?
I think one thing, opportunity comes to those who are prepared, right? These are just phrases that we learn about and we hear about, but you have to start acting on them, right? Chirmule University themselves provides a fantastic forum of biotechnology classes, right? So, and then it is not just taking the classes, it's not just listening to the professor, it's not just reading books, it is having the conversations, ability to ask the questions to the professors and increase the level of curiosity. The curiosity is like a muscle, right? You start becoming curious only when you constantly be curious. And Atul, you and I have talked about this in the past, right? And maybe you can tell us your story about this, about curiosity. As children, we are curious about all kinds of things, but we lose that curiosity as we go ahead. And that curiosity has to be there to be able to do what you want to do. And those things will open doors for you.
So you're saying keep asking questions. Even if the world tells you it's a stupid question, keep asking the question, keep probing. That's very important.
Yeah.
Let me ask a cheeky question. I was asked a question to ask you. Was the environment that you wrote important to you to write the book? I know when we were doing all our webinars together, you were writing the book. So was I an inspiration a little bit over here, or Shulani?
Well, your dad wrote his book at at 70 or what?
82.
82. Like, what an inspiration your father is for everything that he does and bringing it all together in a book, right? I mean, people like your father are the ones who inspire me to say, okay, you know what, it's time to sit down and write something, because it's not for the legacy of, there's no, of course, there is some ego that I've written the book and everybody's reading it and all of that I'm human. So I will have an ego. It's like not that. But it's so satisfying to be able to, write down everything that's sort of in your head and clarify it, right? So many things for me were like confusing as I wrote the book. It wasn't clear, but I wrote it. So absolutely, the whole, how many? We've done some 20 sessions on self-awareness with you in the last year, which are all on YouTube. I mean, those are the sessions that helped me clarify many things that I wrote in the book, like how to ask questions, all of the things that we did with the students in these kind of Zoom sessions, right? That's, all of these conversations is what made the book. I can't sit in a vacuum and write a book on random things, right? Yeah. You're back on mute. Sorry.
How important is creativity in the process, Naren? You are a very creative person, but I, being a nerd, not as creative as you, can I also write a book? Is creativity important in writing a book?
You are very creative, Atul. I think all of us are creative, but we are all creative in different ways, right? So, for example, your creativity may not be in playing music or painting or anything like that at this time, but your creativity is looking at how talking to the students every day. I see your posts on LinkedIn every day, right? You're talking to like 100 people every day. That is your creativity, ability to talk to people, right? Ability to motivate people to do things. So everybody has a different creative mind. That creative mind is brings together things that you want to do. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, and you asked this question, and it sort of relates to that. The best part of the book I wrote, the best writing in the book, experiences I had in the book, is in the worst situations. I was sitting in a crowded train with a lot of noise going on, and crazy things were happening. That's when I could concentrate and write the book better. That was me. But when I was sitting in front of a beach or in front of a big garden and everything, I couldn't write that well. So I think this creativity part, when your mind is full, you have to use it efficiently to focus on what you want to do. I mean, that's.
I'm going to make two things. Make you do two things. First, I'm going to make you play the flute. Let's see how creative you are today, Naren.
Okay, I'll do that. And the second thing you're going to tell me later.
I'm going to ask you to read an excerpt from your book.
Okay, excellent.
Your favorite piece.
So I hope now I'm going to play the same song that I've played a couple of times now, but now I want you to listen carefully, because my teacher, Aditya Sutar, who lives in Sangli in Maharashtra, has been teaching me every week for the last year. And every Saturday I have a class with him. So I should have improved. So you tell me if I've improved from the year ago to now. Okay, I'm going to play the same song.
I will also tell you.
Moh ke dage, same song, okay?
I'm sure Papon would be very, very proud of you for the way you played the flute, Naren. Congratulations. And for the students, that's what creative people are. That's what geniuses are. They oscillate between science and creativity and music. And I'm sure all you students, I mean, so many of you, you're so creative. Continue with, the creativity that God has given you. One more question before we make you read the excerpt. We live in a world where biology and mathematics is coming together, Naren. So there's nothing like, I was told, if you want to be in drug discovery, if you want to be in doing work on genes, you need to understand mathematics. mathematicians can become biotechnologists, and biologists can become biotechnologists. So does it help if you know both? If you know mathematics and biology, how important is the confluence of mathematics and biology in the future of life sciences in the world? And I think it's an important question for our students because typically biology students say math nahi aati sir, isliye biology kar li. And mathematics students think it's beneath them to understand biology. So what's your take on it?
Atul, you went to IIT and you went to the premier institution in India for technology, and so mathematics, engineering, and all of that is a very important component. In our schools and also in all around the world, it is generally like this. I don't know why this segregation happened. You either do mathematics or you do biology. You generally never do both, right? So generally speaking, maybe till 12th you do it, but after that it's just one or the other. And I think the beauty of science or everything is sort of the intermingling of subjects, right? The ability to take a biological problem and put a mathematical equation to it, or find analogies of biology in mathematical issues, like when a bird flies, what are the mathematics of the bird flying? Or when you're doing a mathematical equation, is there an analogy of a biology? Like, for example, if step A, B, C, D are happening and they're happening progressively, right? Does it look like you're eating food and then, and it's being digested? Like that mathematical equation looks like something like a biological thing. So intermingling of these subjects and helps you, mix the so-called left brain, right brain. And that's when the power of your entire brain comes together. And I think, and doing all of these different things allows the network in your brain to connect. And once those neurons connect, then magic happens, right? So that's the beauty of life.
So I think that's a message to the students. Don't be afraid of mathematics if you're a biology student. And if you're a mathematics student, you could still build a career in biology, in life sciences. You could actually bring mathematical models. By the way, I was in a lecture, Naren. This was by a Nobel Prize winner, and he was talking about thermodynamics. And he gave the example of a human cell when he was speaking about thermodynamics and heat transfer. So, and he said that the most efficient form of heat transfer and energy conservation is that of an animal cell. And he spoke about mitochondria and stuff. And he brought in physics and biology together. It was so fascinating, what's really in this world.
Atul, I have a question for you, and I want you to comment on something. One of the many reasons I wrote this book was for biotechnology students in universities like Shulini to understand what it takes to develop drugs. But I also wanted to ask you this question: how can let's say drug development, as an example, be taught with using the new education policy that we have in India? How can we transform the education process by bringing the ideas that you have brought together? Like I would love to hear that, because that's one of the reasons I wrote the book.
I have an idea. Let's make you a mentor and go out and discover a drug, Naren. I'm sure the students are capable enough. Let's go out and solve one or two problems. I'm sure we'll read somewhere. So Poonam, why don't we get some volunteers who would like to get into the process of drug discovery? And Naren, why don't you guide us? Why don't you become the mentor? I can only sponsor it because that's all I can do. I only know, finance and banking and strategy. I'm not a biologist like you, but
that is as important. That is as important. No, I think that's a great idea. I know your passion.
Yeah, we could look at, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but we could look at biomolecules. We could look at drugs available in the Himalayas. There's so much happen around us that we could look at. So let's make it happen. I'm going to request Poonam to help us drive this effort.
Yeah, thank you. This will be fun. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was muted. That's why I couldn't respond. Yeah, surely. Why not? Certainly.
Yeah, so we'll get, we love the two of you, by the way. Good.
Thank you.
We'll get Saurabh. I don't know whether he's on this call or not, but we'll get Saurabh Kulshrestha to put a team together. let's get undergrads, first year students to be part of this.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
And let's, Saurabh, let's make it happen. I can see Saurabh.
Yes, he's there.
Okay.
You're muted, Saurabh. You're muted.
We're interviewing our students for SRPN and for the research programs. We see that students have spark in it and they have very crazy ideas. So we can ask it from, we can start it from asking the students itself, like if they have a crazy idea that can be taken up and can be implemented later on. So surely we can do that. Yeah.
Identify one problem and make it multidisciplinary. Get some students from literature also, right? Why?
Yeah. And while coming to the theme of my book, while success is what we want, you should expect that you will see failures, and from those failures, you will learn so much.
So Naren, I have one more request or an idea. So can we include one workshop as part of our research programs, like undergrad research programs or master research program, the drug discovery workshop that you were talking about? So can we have, or can we plan that?
Absolutely. This is something that we've been really, you and I have been talking quite a bit about this. So let's do that. Let's absolutely do that.
Sorry, I'm interrupting over here, Saurabh, but I'm getting a bigger idea. I'm sure there'll be students wanting to do this. I would like to. So rather than one lecture, Naren, can we create a series of, let's say, 5 lectures where you go into the different steps of drug discovery?
Definitely.
I can speak about the commercial side of it. I've done some work on that along with you.
That'll be great. And the book is a good. The reason I've written these 7 chapters is literally, this is part of the course that we could develop. Like every rather than just black and white teaching what pharmacology is and then showing graphs of pharmacology, this and that, you actually tell a story of what happened in that pharmacology experiment. Like hemophilia, you gave factor 8 to Murli, and the factor 8 level went up, and because the factor 8 level went up, his blood started clotting, and it cured. That is pharmacology. It's much more personal to teach in that way rather than.
I picked this up. Next semester we do a minor on good genes gone back.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's make it happen. So why don't you read an excerpt from your best part of the book?
Well, there are so many parts, and I wasn't prepared to read, but let me just pick any page, because I think any page is something that I can read. So let me read a non-scientific part, because this is something that I really want to drive home. Science, the whatever subject you are, that you have to read, that you have to do, but it is the soft skills that no one really teaches us what to do, right? So let me read just a few lines of something called the inflection point. So this is the page I'm reading, and so I write about factors that can change your life, right? So I write about factors that can change your life in things like factors that influence the inflection point of a curve can include courage, respect, discipline, attitude and passion, effective communication, truthfulness, and health. When you have all of these things, it sounds abstract, but if you do a couple of these things, your life will suddenly change. It is such a beautiful way to look at life, right? So I'll give you an example of courage. If you do one courageous act in your life in the path of what you're trying to do, you make a decision that I want to do this. Like you're studying in school, for example, students, you're studying in school, and you say, I'm going to, in addition to my studies, like Atul was saying, I'm going to start this project. It takes a lot of courage to say, I'm going to start this project, because you have to put time, investment, you have to do all of these things, right? But once you make the decision to do that new thing, you know your life is going to change, right? So these softer skills is what I really like. I really enjoyed writing about the book.
I'm going to ask students to please ask questions. This is your day, so I'm sure If you can put the chat bot on Shard, we'd love to get questions from the audience. Or you can raise your hand and I think we can put the spotlight on you. But before I end and ask the students to take over, let me ask a question. I've heard about romances in the lab. Does that happen?
Absolutely. And I haven't written about romances in this book, but when two people who like each other are spending 24 hours a day together, it's but natural that these romances happen in the lab, and they are beautiful things that happen. And there are a lot of people in my life who have come together because they've been together in the lab for a long time, and that's a great thing. You like to meet people who are like-minded. You like to meet people who are compatible with you. Obviously you're working in the lab, therefore your interests also are the same. So it's a fantastic thing to meet your life partner in the place that you work.
You see so many of them at Shulani also happening. Poonam, I can see smiling. So yeah, I mean, that's a perk of being a scientist, a researcher. So Poonam, I can't read again. Students, put your questions. I think there's one comment or one question. Poonam, pick this up. I don't know what the question is, but I can see something. But students, please ask questions. This is, we have Narendra with us. Any question, there's nothing good or bad. Please put your questions in there. I'm sure you have lots of them.
Yeah.
Good.
Arvind, anything from your side before the students come in?
So he's asking me. Yeah. Hi, Niren. It's really a pleasure. What a fantastic session, like always. It's so inspiring. And I take pride in the fact that I sort of discovered you at Biocon.
He never forgets to rub that in. He'll always say, you know what, I met Narendra first. I brought him to Shulani.
I was with Amitabh Saha, who was the president there, and he said that there's a guy called Narendra Chirmule. You must meet him. He's retiring from Biocon, and he'll be a great asset to you guys. And the rest is history. You've been part of Shulani since then, and it's been such a pleasure, and we're very proud of. And you're fluent. I mean, you're multi-talented and multi-skilled and multi-dimensional with great perspective. So always a pleasure.
And Arvind, you've also done such a lot of work. I mean, I think the kudos go both directions. It never is unidirectional. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much for mentioning that soft skills are so important, because I'm the one who's always
Soft skiller.
on the soft skills part with all the scientists and the technologists. So thank you for bringing that in.
It's so important, yeah.
Yes.
There are a bunch of questions.
Yes.
You want to put the name of the student and then ask some questions. But I can see Changal, Saizan Changal asking, what advice would you give to failure PhD aspirants? Future PhD aspirants.
Yeah.
Okay. So lots of things can be discussed in the context of PhD students, but a couple of things I'll tell you about PhD, right?
I like your answer to be short because I'd like all the questions to be answered. And Poonam, if you could ask the questions, I'll appreciate. Over to you.
Thank you for mentioning that. So PhD is not about the degree and not about the subject. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, and even to me after many years, PhD is a process to solve extremely difficult problems. That is what PhD is about. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. You can do a PhD in sharpening a pencil. The process of sharpening the pencil is the same as how you develop the drug. The method is the same. So what you learn in PhD is a process of how to do deep research, and second, solving extremely difficult problems. That's what PhD is about.
I think that's what life is about. Poonam, next question.
Yeah. So 2 questions, almost the same ones. My question is, how can one stay motivated after lots of failure? That's Soumyadeep. And then Sachin says, sir, how to keep ourselves motivated in a journey full of struggles? I'm in a small village of Bihar, and here no one knows anything about biotechnology.
Yeah.
Ronnie, before he starts, Ronnie is getting impatient. He said, "Kitna aur chalega?" Aapne bataya nahi. So Ronnie, we have another 15 minutes. right? So please bear with us. Over to you, Narendra.
Okay, so the first question I heard was, what do you keep yourself to be motivated after failure? I think there is no simple answer to this, right? It has to come from within, and one, it has to come from within, and then second, you have to be inspired by people around you who are motivators for you. And I keep bringing back Shulini, but I don't say that only because we're talking here. I truly believe in the environment that is there in Shulini, the physical environment that's there in Shulini, the people that are around you. Everyone is a driven, constantly, driven person. So when you're around positive energy people, no matter how you feel, you will be infected by those positive people. So be around positive people. That is one way to constantly be motivated. And the question about being from a small town in Bihar where no one knows biotechnology. गांधी जी ने जब हमको आजादी दिलाई, उनको कोई टेक्स्ट बुक नहीं था कि ऐसे करते हैं, खुद किया उन्होंने. तो बिहार में अगर तुम हो बायोटेक्नोलॉजी करो ना, फिर खुद ही करो. It is not easy to do, but we are all there to help you. But if you want to do something in your village in Bihar, go right ahead. Transform your village in Bihar. Go do it. I think, Atul, you would definitely support something like that, isn't it?
Absolutely. Just make it happen. I think look at his shoes and wear Nike shoes and just do it. That's the Nike. And just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yes.
So yeah, go ahead, Poonam.
So Purvi says, sir, I'd like to ask that considering the time and patience required in the field of research and an increased time frame for achieving results and rewards, what do you think could be the solution to overcome this thinking and be inspired to take up long-term research projects? Purvi happens to be an exceptionally bright student that we have, very, she's like, multi-talented, and so let's hear your answer.
Yeah, so taking a long time to do research, taking a long time to develop drugs, taking a long time to do innovative work, this is part of the territory. We are not here to solve easy problems, right? We are here to solve difficult problems. And the easy problem, if you're going to do, actually, there's no problem in the world that is easy. Everyone thinks it is easy, but it's not actually easy. Even if you want to open a pan shop, अगर मुझे काम नहीं करना, मुझे पान की दुकान खोलनी है, पान की दुकान नहीं खोलनी कोई आसान बात नहीं होती है. तो पीएचडी लगती है उसको पान काम, वो बेचारे पान वाले को पीएचडी नहीं मिलती, but the amount of work he does, उसको पीएचडी मिल जानी चाहिए पान शॉप खोलने के लिए, right? So there is no such thing as easy job, right? That doesn't exist. If you're trying to do something easy, a shortcut ले रहे हो, shortcut में तो कुछ ना कुछ गलत होगा ही फिर. So that is one thing. And the second thing is PhDs research projects are long-term because they require that level of integrity and depth of thinking to solve these difficult problems. There is no two ways about it. Life is a journey.
I want to add one thing over here, Naren.
Please.
This is for Purvi and all for the budding students, because the journey is long. You need hobbies to keep your mind distracted from failures. So I think what you also need to make sure is that you also have short-term goals that keep you happy, apart from that long-term project. So build those hobbies, build things that will keep you excited apart from just doing that piece of research. So every great researcher will have something special about them. Naren plays the flute, he paints, for example. So do that.
So Naren, you said shortcuts will, lead to some glitches and failures and things like that. So do you think we've taken a shortcut to the vaccination or development, or have we done our research and development 100%? What's your take on that?
Well, this was the most unusual circumstance in the world to develop a drug, right? It was not a question of taking a shortcut. It was the urgency of getting a vaccine. So the world needed a vaccine. And this is not the time to really take shortcuts. I mean, there were, I won't call them shortcuts. They were actually informed decisions that were taken, risks that were taken, so that the world can be saved from this virus. I mean, it was a risk undertaking exercise. Now, one thing that we have to remember, people like Catherine Jansen, who headed the Pfizer vaccine, and just yesterday she was nominated into the United States Academy of Sciences, Academy of Medicine. So a huge honor because of what she has done. Jackie Miller, who is the head of the Moderna vaccine. All of these are my friends, and I've talked to them a lot. These people have been working on vaccines for the last 40 years. They didn't just come overnight from somewhere. So they have been developing vaccines for 40 years. All their experiences, all their learnings that they have done have been used to develop this vaccine in 1 year. It just didn't come overnight. So Bruce Levine, who's a friend of mine, and also I've written a part of his story in the book, starts most of his lectures like this. And he's a professor in UPenn who has done seminal work in terms of curing some kinds of cancer. And he starts his lecture like this. The overnight success of the immune response to cancer that we have now realized that cures cancer took 30 years. That's how he starts his lectures. The overnight success took 30 years. सब कुछ दिखता है overnight. उसके पीछे कितना काम हुआ वो नहीं दिखता लोग.
One of my friends who was a coach, an Olympics coach, would say, for a 100-meter sprint, it takes 9.8 or 9.9 seconds for you to run it. But it is 4 years of preparation for that 9.8 seconds of sprint at the Olympics.
So true, so
Huge
true.
amount of effort goes in for that dash that you take at the end. So Naren, now you've got 2 more questions. I'm going to request Shard. There are some people waiting in the waiting room. Please let them in, Shard. So those 2 questions, Poonam, that you'd like to pick up for the students and hand over to the...
So this is again back to research, and he says, Rishabh Ankur says, how to create a good research hypothesis.
Yeah, so good. It is not simple to make a hypothesis for things. You have to start thinking about what a hypothesis is, and for that you have to learn some methodologies. And that's where, for example, when Atul was saying, the mathematical world will teach you how to think about hypothesis. Your beta errors and your alpha errors, all of these things that you learn in mathematics is a way to create hypothesis. So in order to learn how to make good hypothesis, learn that part of statistics and mathematics. It will teach you how to make hypotheses. But to answer your question, how to create a good hypothesis is that you have to have some beliefs, right? Let's say in this case, in the COVID vaccine case, what would be the hypothesis? The hypothesis will that antibodies to the spike protein will prevent infection. That is the hypothesis. And you have to do experiments to show the hypothesis is true. We could have developed all the vaccines in the world using spike protein. And at the end of the day, if antibodies to the spike protein were not protective, then your hypothesis would be not proven. But the hypothesis should have an answer. Yes, no kind of answer. So
I would add to this, Naren, if you allow me.
Yes, please.
Great question. I think to build a great hypothesis, you need to do 3 things. First, for the problem that you have, you need a hypothesis. Speak to experts. So if you speak to 10 different experts, you'll have 10 different thoughts. So you form an opinion, form a hypothesis. Second, read about it. Read about that particular topic, you'll get that hypothesis. And the last thing is about experience, Naren. So I think these 3 culminate into coming up with a quality hypothesis.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you agree with me, but that's at least
totally. Well said.
Last question, Poonam.
Yes, the last one. Okay. The English.
You know what I'm going to do? Why don't we do one thing? If anyone wants from the audience to ask a question, rather than put it on chat, does anyone want to raise their hand and allow them inside? Put the spotlight on them. Whoever wants to ask a question.
That'd be nice.
If someone does that, please, we'll unmute and help you.
But this last question you can take.
So till then, let's ask a question, Poonam.
Yeah. So, we get distracted by our goal many times. Were you ever distracted from your goals, by your goals? Did you get distracted as well?
A lot of times. Sure. a lot of times we all get distracted all the time. Distraction is, it is part of life. Now, one thing that I've been exploring for myself is these two words called passion and purpose. And we sort of use them interchangeably, right? But they're not actually interchangeable. You have to have a purpose in life, and then you have a passion to pursue that purpose, right? A very interesting thing that I read in Harvard Business Reviews one day was passion may actually come in the way of your purpose. You might be doing you might have a purpose somewhere here, but if you're passionate about something else, it might actually take you in a different direction. So you have to be careful what you're passionate about, isn't it? Your passion has to be in the direction of the purpose, because otherwise you might go in a different direction. So that's, think about goal as passion and purpose and know what those two things are.
So there's a question by one of the students asking you, what's your experience in biotechnology? Well, Naren has done biotechnology all his life. If you haven't picked that up. But I think that's a learning for all of us young students, that at the end of the day, apart from knowledge in your subject, it's purpose, passion, softer side of it, which Naren spoke about, is very, very important.
Yes.
That's going to take it to the next level. Of course, knowledge and your ability to articulate the subject is very, very important. But if you do not bring in the softer side of yourself, you will not move up. So you'll see Naren speaking 70% of his time on the softer things, and you haven't really spoken about the scientific stuff of it, I think. So there is one student who's raised their hand, Ananya. Let's get Ananya in. Shard, let's get Ananya into the discussion.
Muted.
Ananya, please unmute yourself.
Ananya, can you unmute yourself, put up your camera and ask the question? Shard, can you unmute Ananya?
Yes, sir. I have asked her to unmute.
Okay, I think Ananya is having trouble. She might be in a zone where the technology is not appropriate. Let's wait for half a second. Okay. We've got Shubhra who's there. Let's get Shubhra. Shubhra's raised her hand. Let's get Shubhra.
Looks like Ananya is here, yeah.
But Ananya's is not unmuting. We can see her, but let's get Shubhra in. Shubhra, you want to ask a question?
Yes, sir. Good morning to all the dignitaries here.
You get the spotlight on
Good
Shubhra.
evening.
Could you unmute? Could you show your camera, please? Switch on the camera.
Okay, sir.
Would love you to see a lovely face, and please put the spotlight on Shubhra. Yeah, welcome.
Good evening to all.
Good evening.
So my question is that sometimes we are distracted by our societies regarding any goal or anything. So we are just told to ignore them. But sometimes, sir, it's we who are get demotivated, or it's our inner inside that told us that, we cannot do this, or this is a goal which is unimaginable. How can we achieve this? So, sir, from the societal pressure, we can overcome, but this is the pressure which we can overcome, which we can't overcome by self-motivation. So, sir, if sometimes in your life also you have feel this, or if yes, then how you overcome from this thing?
Yeah.
Before Naren goes there, Shubhra, you want to introduce yourself very quickly?
Yes, sir. Myself, Shubhra Mishra. I'm first year student of Biotechnology.
Excellent
Welcome,
question. Over to you, Naren.
Excellent question, Shubhra. So, in the spirit of answering question in a short way, we are always, motivated, demotivated all the time during our course of our careers, right? So one methodology, there are many methodologies. One methodology I use for myself to keep myself motivated, continuously motivated. So every Friday, I write 7 things that I have done that week. And I actually physically write it with the hand, not on a computer, on a notebook. What that does to me is every day, you must have done something important, something like sometimes like it could be maybe one day you've done nothing. Actually, it takes a lot of effort to do nothing. So on one day I'll write, I did nothing. Oh, बहुत बड़ा accomplishment है मेरे लिए. Right? So what happens, you're always constantly going through failures in your life, but when you have a failure, you always focus on your failure. You forget about all the accomplishments that you've had. So a methodology of constantly writing what you have accomplished every week on week, gives you this satisfaction that even though I'm failing, look at how many things I'm actually doing. Right? We forget about the things that we're doing. So that's one methodology to keep yourself motivated.
Okay,
Well,
thank
I
you,
think
sir.
the time is over. Thank you, Shubhra. Naren, what a lovely, lovely, lovely discussion. Students, I hope you enjoyed yourself. We'll get Naren back again. Naren is part of the Shulani family, but do read the book. It's available in your library. If you're not on campus, go out and order it. It's on Amazon. I think it's a beautiful book. I've read a few chapters. So Naren, first of all, congratulations for this beautiful book.
Thank you.
To thank Poonam and Arvind for making this happen. Because Arvind, if you were not there, we wouldn't have known.
Yes.
He was while we were talking about the drug discovery. I have done Chirmule discovery.
Okay, and I want to thank Shard and Vipul, who always are behind the scene to make this happen. I thank Saurabh and everyone from the different departments who are here, and more importantly, the audience, the students. It's been a wonderful discussion. So many questions that you asked. So keep asking your questions, keep posting them. If you send your questions to Poonam, I'm sure Naren will answer all your questions by email. I'm sure you can friend Naren on Insta and Facebook. He's very active there. So reach out to Naren. He's part of the family. Become like Naren. He's a role model. And hopefully one of you will also do some great drug discovery. Hopefully one of you will win the Nobel Prize. And once again, look forward to getting you back, Naren. Thank you very, very much. We know it's very early for you. Last thoughts, 2 minutes, last thoughts before we close the day.
Yeah, thank you again for the book. The last thought is read the book. I would love to hear your comments. Send me questions on any social media platform that you have. And I look forward to seeing a lot of you in January when I come to Sholini.
Wow.
Excellent. So we're going to plan a lunch or a dinner with Naren. So let's make that happen. Thank you once again. And thank you, everyone. We'll keep talking. We'll keep doing the Guru series. Thank you, Poonam, for doing that. And we'll invite you to the next Guru series, this time as an audience. Thank you, Naren. Have a great day, everyone. Good night.
Bye, Grace.
Bye-bye.